What if I told you that the moment a man starts to truly care about you is the same moment he begins to emotionally disappear? Why would someone who chased you, opened up to you, made you feel like the only one suddenly pull away when everything finally feels real? Is it something you did? Is it something you said? Or is it something inside him that you were never supposed to fix? Because here's the truth. No one tells you. Some men aren't afraid of rejection. They're afraid of being truly seen. I want you to imagine this like a story, one you've probably lived through yourself. It starts with connection, late night talks, eye contact that lingers, moments that make you think, this time it's different. And just when your heart begins to open, he steps back. Not because he doesn't care, but because caring too much feels dangerous. This isn't just about dating. It's about psychology. It's about the stories men carry and the way real love shines a light on what they've spent years trying to hide. So today, we're going to dive deep into the truth behind why men pull away right when it's finally real. Let's begin. You ever had that moment when everything felt right? He texted first. He made you laugh. He asked questions. He remembered the small things. He made plans. Real ones, not just we should hang out sometime. And the way he looked at you, it wasn't casual. It was like he actually saw you, like he was in it. You let your guard down. You smiled more. You started to feel safe. And then silence. Not a breakup. Not an argument. Distance. The texts slow down. The warmth fades. He's still there technically, but emotionally, he's checked out. It feels like someone pulled the plug on something that was just starting to light up, and you're left wondering, what just happened? Here's the part that stings. He didn't give you a reason. He didn't explain. And so your brain starts doing the thing it always does when closure is missing. It blames you. You think, maybe I moved too fast. Maybe I said too much. Maybe I should have played it cooler. But what if it wasn't about you at all? What if his sudden shift had nothing to do with anything you did wrong, but everything to do with what your presence woke up inside of him? See, when a man shows up fully in the beginning, it's not always fake, it's often real. That version of him, the one who was engaged, open, present, that's the part of him that wants connection. But as the connection deepens, so does the vulnerability. And here's the thing. For many men, vulnerability feels like danger. Not because you're unsafe, but because safety itself feels unfamiliar. He was so present. Until it got real. Until the feelings got big. Until it reminded him of every moment in his life where closeness was followed by pain. By disappointment, by being let down, or worse, not being enough. And when that memory, conscious or unconscious, gets activated, he does what many people do when they're overwhelmed. He pulls back. Not because the connection wasn't real, but because the connection touched a part of him that he hasn't made peace with. And I want you to really hear this part. You didn't break it, you just reached it. That version of him that disappeared, he didn't vanish because you were too much. He vanished because what you offered felt too real, too kind, too unfamiliar. And that's terrifying for someone who's only known emotional survival. Let me give you a real-life example. I had a friend, let's call her Emily. She met this guy, Nick. First few weeks were magic. He called her every night. He remembered what coffee she liked. He opened up about his childhood, his fears, his dreams. She told me, I feel like he actually sees me. But the moment she told him, I feel really safe around you, he ghosted. Just like that. No explanation, no drama, just gone. And weeks later, he texted her out of the blue. He said, I freaked out. I didn't know how to handle being cared for without having to earn it. That moment taught her something powerful. Sometimes love doesn't scare them. Being seen does. And when you understand that, you stop blaming yourself for someone else's emotional shutoff. So what's the takeaway here? It's this. When someone pulls away, it's tempting to see it as a reflection of your worth. But more often than not, it's a reflection of what they haven't yet faced within themselves. Your softness didn't scare him. It revealed where he was still guarded. And once you can see that clearly, you stop trying to chase the version of him that only exists when he feels safe. Instead, you start asking, what part of him is reacting here? And why does love feel like danger to someone who claims they want it? And that's exactly where we're headed next. Because to understand his distance, we need to understand his wiring. Let's keep going. You'd think that when something feels good, real grounded, emotionally safe, a person would lean in. But for a lot of men, that's exactly when they pull away. And it doesn't make logical sense on the outside. He told you he was tired of games. He said he wanted something deep, something real. You offered exactly that. And now he's retreating. Here's the truth. Real doesn't just feel intimate. It feels exposed. Because when something is real, there's more to lose. This is especially true for men who've never seen emotional safety modeled growing up. If what they witnessed in their childhood was rejection, conflict, instability, then love feels like walking into a room that looks beautiful but might collapse any second. So instead of saying, "I'm scared," they go silent. They create space. They say they need time. They blame timing stress or just not feeling like themselves. But underneath all those words is usually one emotion: fear. Fear that if they stay, you'll eventually see what they've worked hard to hide. Fear that if they let you all the way in, they'll mess it up. Fear that the moment they relax into your love, you'll change your mind. And this is where a lot of women start thinking, maybe I just have to prove to him I'm not going anywhere. But here's the trap. The more you try to prove your worth to someone who doesn't feel worthy, the more they resist you. Because it's not about your worth. It's about his belief that real intimacy equals real danger. Let me give you an image. Imagine his nervous system is like a fire alarm. Even when there's no smoke, the alarm still goes off, because it's been trained to associate warmth with fire. So when you offer love without conditions, presence without pressure, he doesn't always interpret that as peace. He interprets it as threat. A threat to the identity he's built on being emotionally self-sufficient. A threat to the walls he spent years reinforcing. And until he learns that safety doesn't mean surrender, he'll keep pulling back from anyone who tries to love him deeply. That's why so many women feel like they're too much in relationships that actually just needed more maturity. Because your love didn't overwhelm him. It revealed the part of him that wasn't ready to receive it. So what do you do with that? We'll explore that in the next part, where we talk about what real love awakens inside of him and why it feels like danger instead of home. Attraction and trust. They sound like they should go together, right? But here's the hard truth. A man can be wildly attracted to you and still not trust what he's feeling. He might want to be close. He might initiate everything. He might say all the right things. And yet deep down, he's waiting for it to go wrong. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because inside his mind, closeness equals risk. Let's be clear. Attraction is instinctual, trust is earned, and more importantly, it's learned. And not every man has learned how to feel safe with attraction that runs deep. Some men associate intense feelings with chaos. They grew up watching love turn into yelling silence or betrayal. So now when they feel something real, they don't lean in. They question it. They might even question you. I remember one woman I coached. She told me, he said, "I'm everything he's ever wanted." And then 2 days later, he said he's not sure he can handle a relationship. That's not confusion. That's conditioning. When you're used to things falling apart, stability feels suspicious. Think of it like this. You give him calm. He's used to adrenaline. You give him presence. He's used to unpredictability. You give him love. that doesn't ask him to prove anything, and he starts asking himself, what's the catch? Because in his mind, love that comes easy can't be trusted. So what does he do? He tests it. He withdraws. He waits for the moment you disappoint him. Not because he wants to leave, but because he's bracing himself for pain. He's already convinced it's coming. And here's where a lot of women start blaming themselves again. But hear this. Just because he doesn't trust the connection doesn't mean the connection isn't real. It means his framework for love is still tied to fear. And until he rewires that belief, no amount of your presence can convince him that he's safe. That's why you have to remember, you're not here to fix his trust. You're here to honor your truth. The lesson here, just because someone is pulled toward you, doesn't mean they're ready to stay with what they've found. And that's not rejection. That's a reflection of where they are in their own journey. So what happens when your love shines a light on the part of him that's still afraid? Let's talk about that next. You ever wonder why something as beautiful as love can make someone feel so exposed? Carl Jung had a word for that. He called it the shadow. The shadow isn't evil. It's not some dark monster hiding in our minds. It's simply the part of ourselves we've been taught to reject. For many men, the shadow includes feelings like sadness, softness, vulnerability, need. They're told early on, be strong, don't cry, don't show weakness. So those parts get buried, not gone, just hidden. And then one day, someone like you comes along. You're kind, you're open, you make it safe to be real, and without even trying, you shine a light into that buried place. That's when the shadow starts to stir. It might show up as silence, or irritability, or pulling away after things felt close. It's not about you. It's about what being loved by you activates inside of him. Because being seen, truly seen, means confronting everything he's avoided seeing in himself. Let me give you an example. I once worked with a man who said, "Every time my girlfriend says she loves me, I feel like I'm about to fail her." He wasn't afraid of love. He was afraid of being fully seen and not measuring up. That's the shadow speaking. And here's where it gets complicated. The closer you get to him, the more you invite that shadow to the surface. Not on purpose, not because you're too much, but because you're offering something real, and real can't exist without truth. So what does his shadow do? It fights, it runs, it protects him, the only way it knows how, by retreating from the thing that feels too good to be true. But here's the lesson. His shadow is not yours to hold. You didn't create it, and you don't need to heal it. What you can do is recognize it when it appears, and instead of chasing him into his darkness, you stand firm in your light, because your love should never require you to shrink. So what happens when you stop chasing his comfort and start honoring your clarity? We'll go there next. Here's a paradox that's hard to accept. The moment you feel closest to him might be the moment he feels most exposed. It's confusing, right? You're opening your heart. You're letting him in. You feel safe, connected, even hopeful. And then just like that, he pulls away. You might think, wait, I thought we were getting closer. And you were. But closeness for some men doesn't feel like safety. It feels like threat. Not because you did anything wrong, but because emotional intimacy isn't just about love. It's about visibility. And when someone has spent years hiding behind strength, silence, or control, being truly seen can feel like being emotionally naked in a room full of light. Think of it like this. You're sharing space. You're sharing truth. You're bonding not just physically but emotionally. And inside his mind, a quiet voice starts to whisper, what if she sees the real me? What if I mess this up? What if I'm not enough? These thoughts aren't loud, but they're powerful. They activate the protector inside him, the one that says, pull back, don't risk it, stay in control. I remember a woman who told me about this guy she was seeing. They had this incredibly honest conversation. He cried, really cried for the first time in years. The next day, he barely spoke to her. She was heartbroken, She thought she broke something, but she didn't break it. She touched something he wasn't ready to face. That's the thing about love. It doesn't just soften us, it exposes us. And not everyone is ready to live unguarded. So what do you do with this? You remind yourself, his withdrawal is not always rejection. Sometimes it's a reflection of how much he's still protecting. And in that space, you don't need to perform. You don't need to chase. You just need to keep choosing yourself. Because real love doesn't ask you to get smaller, just so someone else can feel safe. So what if you stop walking on eggshells and start standing in your truth? Let's talk about that next. How many times have you asked yourself, was I too much, too emotional, too honest, too intense, too available? It's such a common question, especially after someone pulls away. But let me offer you a different truth. You weren't too much, you were just real. And for someone who's not ready for real, that can feel overwhelming. Here's what often happens. You show up with an open heart. You're not playing games, you're communicating, you're being fully yourself. And instead of being met with presence, you're met with distance. So naturally, your mind wants to protect you from that pain. It starts finding reasons, and most of those reasons point back at you. But here's what I want you to know. It's not your openness that pushed him away. It's his unfamiliarity with being met with something so honest. Because when someone has lived their life expecting love to be complicated, kindness feels suspicious, consistency feels too good to be true, presence feels like pressure. Not because of who you are, but because of what they've learned to survive. Let me share a quick story. There was a woman, let's call her Rachel. She dated a man who always said he wanted something real. She gave him just that. She was open, affectionate, clear. She didn't hide behind coolness or try to play hard to get. And after a few months, he told her, I don't think I can do this. You're just a lot. And for weeks, Rachel blamed herself. She started editing her personality, dimming her brightness, trying to be less just to avoid ever being called too much again, until she realized she wasn't too much. She just brought her full self into a space that wasn't ready to hold it. That moment changed everything for her. And maybe it can for you too, because here's the lesson. Real love, healthy love, will never ask you to become smaller. The right person will not flinch when you show up with your whole heart. They won't run when you bring your truth to the table. They'll stay. They'll meet you there. So instead of asking, how can I be less? Ask, who's actually capable of receiving me as I am? Because shrinking yourself to be digestible will only leave you starved. And you don't have to prove that your heart is worthy. You just have to protect it from people who aren't ready to hold it. So what happens when you stop asking how to keep them and start asking how to stay true to yourself? That's where we're headed next. So what do you actually do? When he starts pulling away, it's the part no one prepares you for. The part where you feel the distance building and your heart wants to close that gap fast. You might want to text him, call him, ask if something's wrong, fix it before it gets worse. But here's what you need to hear. The space he's creating, it's not always a test, but your reaction to that space that tells him everything. When someone pulls away, your first instinct might be to move closer, to remind them you're still here, to try harder, to be enough. But what if the most powerful thing you could do was stay still, not cold, not passive-aggressive, not shutting down, but grounded, steady, clear. Think of it like standing in the center of a storm. You can't control the wind, but you can decide not to be swept away. Because chasing someone who's withdrawing doesn't pull them closer. It just confirms their fear that love means pressure. That connection means loss of self. Instead, show them through your energy that you're not here to control them. You're not here to convince them. You're here to connect, but only with someone who's also willing to meet you. Let me give you something real to say if you ever need it. I care about this. I care about you. But I'm not going to chase clarity. If or when you're ready to communicate with honesty and respect, I'm open. Until then, I'm staying grounded in what I know I deserve. That kind of message. It's rare, and it speaks louder than panic or persuasion ever could, because it's rooted in self-trust, not self-abandonment. This doesn't guarantee he'll come back, but it does guarantee that you won't lose yourself while waiting for him. And that's everything. So the next time he pulls away, don't try to control the outcome. Just return to your center, because your peace is not a performance, and your worth isn't measured by who chooses you. It's revealed by how you choose yourself when others don't. So what if instead of proving your value, you protected your energy? That's what we'll explore next. What if he comes back? What if after pulling away, going quiet, needing space, he suddenly reaches out again? Your heart might leap. Part of you still hopes, still wonders, and that's okay. But here's what matters most. If he comes back, it must be different. Because if nothing changes, then you're just restarting a cycle that already broke your heart once. So before you let him back in, ask yourself, is he reaching out because he's grown or because he misses your energy? There's a difference. Missing you isn't the same as being ready for you. Sometimes people come back, not because they're ready to show up differently, but because they're lonely or curious or craving the comfort you once gave them. And if you say yes to that energy again, without boundaries, you'll end up proving one thing, that your heart is available even when your needs are not being met. But you deserve more than recycled affection. So when he comes back, pay attention. Is he clear? Is he taking responsibility? Is he showing emotional maturity? Is he asking to reconnect or just to reaccess you? Because the version of you he left behind, that version might have tolerated ambiguity. But the version of you today, she values peace over potential. So if he comes back, let your clarity lead. Ask the questions you were afraid to ask before. Name what you need. Name what you're not available for anymore. Watch how he responds, not just with words, but with presence, consistency, accountability. Because anyone can say, I miss you, but only someone who's done the work can show up in a new way. And if he hasn't, then you get to lovingly walk away, knowing you didn't lose anything. You honored yourself, and that's a kind of victory no one can take from you. So now that you know what it means if he comes back, what happens if he doesn't? Let's talk about that next. And what if he doesn't come back? What if after all the silence, all the distance, he simply stays gone? It's heartbreaking. There's no way around that. It hurts to pour into someone, to build connection, trust, hope, only to feel like it didn't matter enough for them to return. But here's the deeper truth. Even if he doesn't come back, you still win, because while he was pulling away, you were showing up, you were learning to communicate, you were staying open, you were being real. That's not a loss, that's growth. You didn't lose a partner, you revealed one. And when someone walks away from your truth, they're not rejecting your worth, they're revealing their readiness. Let me give you an example. A woman named Jess told me I gave my all. He left anyway. So how do I not feel like I failed? And I said to her, you didn't fail. You finished something. You didn't fail at keeping him. You finished the part of your journey where you believed that being loved meant holding yourself back. And now you get to build a new pattern, one that doesn't revolve around proving, one that starts with choosing you. Because the biggest win isn't keeping someone, it's keeping your center when someone else leaves. So if he doesn't return, grieve, feel it fully, let it hurt, but don't let it harden you. Because the woman who walks away with her self-worth intact, she never walks away empty. And the man who couldn't stay, he didn't leave because you were too much. He left because your presence made it impossible to keep pretending. So what do you do now? Let's close this out together. So let's be honest. Maybe you did everything right. You showed up. You opened your heart. You offered consistency, compassion, real connection, and he still walked away. It's easy to feel like you lost something precious, like you weren't enough to make him stay. But that's not what happened. Because you didn't lose him. He lost the safest place he ever had, your presence, that emotional space you created. It wasn't ordinary, it was rare. It takes courage to hold space for someone else's healing without sacrificing your own. And you did that. He may never say it, he may never realize it out loud, but somewhere in him he will remember. Not just how you made him feel, but how safe it felt to be himself, even if only for a moment. And here's the part people often forget. Sometimes the greatest impact we have on someone's life is the way we show them what love could have looked like before they were ready to receive it. You were that mirror. You didn't make him run. You just reflected what he wasn't yet ready to hold. But that reflection wasn't wasted. It planted something, and maybe he'll grow from it. Maybe he won't. But either way, you walk away with your truth intact. You don't have to dim yourself for someone to feel comfortable. You don't have to carry the pain of someone else's unreadiness. You get to rise because you were never too much. You were the first glimpse of something real. And sometimes that's what real love is. Not something we keep, but something we give fully and freely, trusting that what we offered was sacred, even if it wasn't received. So as we close this, take this with you. You were never the one who was hard to love. You were the one who loved without armor, who stood in your truth, and who now walks forward wiser, stronger, and more whole. And that's what he'll never forget. And that's what no one can take away from you. So if you've made it this far, it means something. In this video resonated. Maybe it's not just about him anymore. Maybe it's about the way you show up in love, the way you care deeply and courageously, even when it hurts. Let's take a moment to remember what matters most. You weren't too much. You were just real. You didn't lose him. He pulled away from something his heart wanted, but his wounds couldn't hold. You didn't fail, love. You offered something sacred, and that is never a loss. So what do you take from this? You take your power back. You take your softness and protect it without closing off. You take your story and write the next chapter from self-worth, not self-doubt. And when the question comes up, was I not enough? You answer it with clarity. I was more than enough. He just wasn't ready. If you felt seen in this video, take a moment. Let it sink in. Let it move through you. Drop a comment and share what part of this message touched you most, because your story might be the mirror someone else needs today. And if you know a friend who's been through this, share this with them. You never know what healing it might spark. Subscribe for more, because you deserve content that meets you where your heart lives. Until next time, stay soft, stay true, and never apologize for loving deeply. We need more hearts like yours in this world.